Good evening, everyone. Warm welcome to Testbook JAIIB CAIIB YouTube channel. My name is Madhav Sir. I welcome you all in the next session. And today we are starting with Module B. As we have already done 100 questions, important and tough questions based on Module A. Today we will be starting with the top 100 questions related to Module B. Next 5 sessions we will be covering 100 MCQs for the Module B as well. So before I start with the discussion, may I have a reply in the comment section that I'm audible, visible? And do not forget to like the session. Do not forget to share the session with your friends so that more and more students, they know that the series is going live and the series is going to help them a lot if they are preparing for JAIIB November 2025 examination. Okay, ji? So before I start, if you have any doubt, you may ask please, else we'll continue our discussion without any further delay. And I'm pretty sure you are going to enjoy today's discussion as well. ठीक है जी, स्टार्ट करें. चलो, just give me a second. We'll begin in a while. हाँ, voice is clear, everything is fine. चलो जी, let's get started. So the first question, before I start with the first question, I have an important announcement to make. That is, you can join our Telegram channel in order to download the PDF of each and every session, and you will get the updates regarding your examination. Here we go with the first question. Principle of lending, safety, liquidity, profitability based. I have 5 statements. You have to identify. Out of these 5 statements, which all statements are correct. More than one statement can be correct. Liquidity refers to the bank's ability to convert loans into cash without significant loss. Liquidity means when you convert your asset into cash, and loan given by the bank is also bank's asset. So that is true. Safety ensure that borrower is willing and able to repay the loan. Safety assures that borrower is willing and able to pay back the loan. That is true. Profitability is primary principle. Other principles are secondary. No sir, that is not the case. This is not the case. जो हम profitability की बात करते हैं, it is important but it is not overriding. It is important but it should not be overriding the other agendas of the bank. Diversification reduces the concentration risk. That is true. Security is the sole determinant of loan safety. देखो जो आप collateral receive कर रहे हैं, क्या सिर्फ और सिर्फ वो sole determinant of loan safety नहीं, आपके borrower का repayment capacity बहुत important है. अगर आपके borrower का repayment capacity appropriate नहीं है, then in that particular case also your loan will be unsafe. So keeping that in mind, 1, 2, 4 are correct. Rest all the options are incorrect. ठीक है जी? Clear हो गया point? समझ आ गया? Moving on to the next one. The next question talks about, one second. The next question talks about credit worthiness analysis. How the credit worthiness of the borrower is analyzed. उसके लिए क्या procedure है? Credit worthiness की अगर हम बात करें तो हमारे question का आंसर क्या होगा? सर, क्रेडिट वर्दीनेस जो है वो असेस करता है बोरोवर की कैपेसिटी, कैरेक्टर एंड कैपिटल. बोरोवर की कैपेसिटी, कैरेक्टर एंड कैपिटल. क्या ये पॉइंट सही है? सर ये बिल्कुल सही पॉइंट है, इसमें कोई दिक्कत, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. अगर मैं बात करूं क्रेडिट वर्दीनेस में, इसमें 3 C's इन्वॉल्व है. 3 C's स्टैंड्स फॉर कैपेसिटी ऑफ द बोरोवर टू रीपे द लोन, कैरेक्टर ऑफ द बोरोवर एज वेल एज द कैपिटल विद द बोरोवर. दूसरा पॉइंट है, इट इज अ पार्ट ऑफ क्रेडिट अप्रेजल एंड प्रीसीड्स लोन सैंक्शन. बिल्कुल सर, क्रेडिट वर्दीनेस एक प्रोसेस है अंडर द क्रेडिट अप्रेजल ओनली, और बिफोर लोन इज सैंक्शन दीज स्टेप्स आर टेकन. इट डज नॉट इन्वॉल्व, नहीं सर ये तो गलत है. इसमें तो ऑब्वियसली आपके सिबिल को या क्रेडिट स्कोर को रिव्यू किया जाता है, उसके बिना तो आपका क्रेडिट अप्रेजल या क्रेडिट वर्दीनेस एनालिसिस कंप्लीट ही नहीं होगा. कैश फ्लो एनालिसिस इज एसेंशियल टू डिटरमाइन रीपेमेंट कैपेसिटी. बिल्कुल सर, कैश फ्लो ऑफ द बोरोवर को एनालाइज करना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, तभी तो आप डिटरमाइन कर पाएंगे कि आपको लोन का रीपेमेंट मिलेगा या नहीं. कोलैटरल इज द मोस्ट क्रिटिकल पार्ट ऑफ क्रेडिट वर्दीनेस. कोलैटरल आपके क्रेडिट वर्दीनेस का इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट नहीं है. कोलैटरल इज समथिंग कि आप एक सिक्योरिटी दे रहे हैं बिफोर बोरोइंग अ लोन, बट उससे आपकी क्रेडिट वर्दीनेस बढ़ेगी नहीं, वो तो आपके पास्ट क्रेडिट हिस्ट्री पे बढ़ेगी. सो आंसर इज गोइंग टू बी 1, 2, 4 अगेन. दैट इज द करेक्ट आंसर. नेक्स्ट, टाइप्स ऑफ बोरोवर्स पार्टनरशिप की अगर हम बात करें, द फर्म इज अ सेपरेट लीगल एंटिटी डिस्टिंक्ट फ्रॉम पार्टनर्स. नहीं सर, फर्म एक सेपरेट लीगल एंटिटी नहीं है, इट्स अ पार्ट ऑफ पार्टनर्स ओनली, सो दैट इज रॉन्ग. लाइबिलिटी ऑफ पार्टनर्स इज अनलिमिटेड एंड जॉइंट एंड सेवरल. जो लाइबिलिटी है आपके पार्टनर्स की, दैट वुड बी अनलिमिटेड, जॉइंट एंड सेवरल. बिल्कुल सर, लाइबिलिटी जो है दैट कैन बी, firm is not a separate legal entity as we have discussed. Liability is unlimited in case of firm. Next is a partnership deed governs their mutual rights and duties. बिल्कुल partnership deed से पता चलता है किसकी क्या right है, क्या duties है. Death of a partner automatically dissolve the firm unless otherwise agreed. That is true. Partners cannot bind the firm in contract with the bank. ये गलत है. Partners अपनी firm को bind कर सकते हैं in the contract with the bank. So answer is going to be 2, 3, 4. Rest first and fifth statement are wrong. Next, fund-based credit facilities. Fund-based credit facility का मतलब when actually funds are given by the bank as a loan. So fund-based credit facility they result in actual outflow of the funds from the bank. बिल्कुल सर, fund-based का मतलब ये है कि आप actually loan दे रहे हैं, funds आपके बैंक से बाहर flow कर रहे हैं. Cash credit, overdraft, bills discounting are examples of fund-based credit. Yes sir, cash overdraft, cash credit, overdraft, bill discounting, इसमें actually funds outflow कर रहे हैं, that is true. Non-fund facilities involve only contingent liability. Contingent liability का मतलब future liabilities and that too in special cases. आज आपने किसी को गारंटी दी as a bank और जिसको आपने गारंटी दी उसके लिए आपने ये कहा कि अगर फ्यूचर में मेरा गारंटर आपको लोन नहीं दे पाया then I will repay. So in that particular case, during the future scenarios, a contingent scenario will appear where you have to pay the amount when your guarantor is not giving it, when your party is not giving, for which you have provided the guarantee. Letter of credit is not a fund based, it is a non-fund based. Term loans are fund based, that is true. So इसका मतलब fourth statement के अलावा 1, 2, 3, 5 are the correct statements, that is true. Moving on to the next one. टर्म लोन वर्सेस वर्किंग कैपिटल लोन. वर्किंग कैपिटल लोन का मतलब क्या होता है सर? वर्किंग कैपिटल लोन उस लोन को कहा जाता है जो आपको अपने डे टू डे ऑपरेशंस को परफॉर्म करने के लिए रिक्वायर्ड है, टू मेक योर डे टू डे एक्सपेंसेस, टू मेक योर डे टू डे बिजनेस टू रन. टर्म लोन्स आर यूज्ड फॉर फिक्स्ड असेट क्रिएशन. बिल्कुल सही है सर, आप जब टर्म लोन लेते हैं जिसमें आप रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट पे करेंगे, यू विल बी पेइंग द रिटर्न ऑफ द लोन इन इंस्टॉलमेंट्स, दैट इज अ टर्म लोन. जहां पे टाइम पीरियड प्री फिक्स्ड है, रीपेमेंट प्रोसीजर प्री फिक्स्ड है, वो आप फिक्स्ड एसेट क्रिएशन के लिए लेते हैं, दैट इज ट्रू. वर्किंग कैपिटल लोन्स फाइनेंस डे टू डे ऑपरेशंस, दैट इज ट्रू. टर्म लोन्स आर यूजुअली, नहीं ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, टर्म लोन्स आर नॉट लेस देन 1 year, दैट इज नॉट ट्रू. I would say term loans are usually long term, greater than 1 year. Working capital cycle helps working capital limit. तो जो आपका working capital cycle है वो define करता है, वो help करता है बैंक को to identify the working capital limit. That is true. Term loans are repayable on demand. No sir, if you want to repay the loan on demand, then you should go for demand loan. So this is wrong. So answer is going to be 1, 2, 4 is the correct answer. Moving on to the next one. Non-fund based facilities are the facilities which create contingent liabilities. अभी पढ़ा, बिल्कुल ठीक है. बैंक गारंटीज, लेटर ऑफ क्रेडिट आर द एग्जांपल्स, बिल्कुल ठीक है. देयर इज नो रिस्क टू द बैंक, गलत है सर. रिस्क तो है, कल को जिसकी गारंटी दी अगर वही मुकर गया तो लॉस तो बैंक को होगा, तो रिस्क तो है. दे कैन कन्वर्ट इनटू फंड बेस्ड इफ इन्वॉक्ड. इसका मतलब क्या? रिस्क एग्जिस्ट इफ इन्वॉक्ड, बिकम फंड बेस्ड लाइबिलिटी. आज अगर आपका गारंटी दी थी, गारंटर जिसके लिए गारंटी दी वो भाग गया, अब आपको पैसा देना पड़ेगा, तो आपके हाथों से पैसा आउटफ्लो होगा, तो इट ऑब्वियसली कन्वर्टेड इनटू द फंड बेस्ड इफ इन्वॉक्ड. दे आर रिकॉर्डेड इन ऑफ बैलेंस शीट आइटम्स, दैट इज ऑल्सो ट्रू. इसे ऑफ बैलेंस शीट आइटम में रखा जाता है, इट्स नॉट केप्ट इन द बैलेंस शीट आइटम्स. 1, 2, 4, 5 आर करेक्ट, बट द थर्ड स्टेटमेंट इज रॉन्ग. क्रेडिट अप्रेजल. क्रेडिट अप्रेजल के बारे में हम पहले भी बात कर चुके हैं. क्रेडिट अप्रेजल involve both quantitative and qualitative assessment of the borrower, that is true. It is conducted, नहीं sir, it is conducted before sanction of loan. जब लोन ही दे दिया तो क्रेडिट अप्रेजल का करना क्या है? It covers technical, financial and economic feasibility of the project, that is true. DSCR and IRR are the part of appraisal tools. Any idea guys? ये terms क्या है? We have two terms, one is DSCR and the other one we have is IRR. in terms का मतलब क्या है? Any idea? Anyone? नहीं, मैं बताता हूँ. DSCR stands for debt service coverage ratio, which means when we measure the borrower's ability to repay the loan obligation, that is interest and principal, from the operating income. That is what we need to understand. So if it is greater than 1, it is good. If it is less than 1, it is tough. That means borrower may not pay back the funds in time. IRR stands for internal rate of return. So measure the project rate of return, the discount rate at which net present value of cash inflows is equals to the cash outflows when that means net present value is equals to 0. That is a scenario. So अब इस केस में अगर हम बात करें तो जो आपका debt service coverage ratio है, that is considered good if it is greater than 1.25. Internal rate returns, they are good if the cost of funds is greater than the loan repayments. ठीक है जी. So DSCR, IRR, the part of appraisals tool, that is true. It is mandatory that all the credit proposals above 5 lakhs. नहीं सर, ऐसा नहीं है कि अगर आपका लोन 25 लाख से ऊपर है तभी क्रेडिट अप्रेजल होगा. That is not a case. That is not a condition. So in that case, fifth option is wrong. So answer is going to be 1, 3, 4. Next, methods of working capital assessment. Methods of working capital assessment की अगर हम बात करें तो उस केस में turnover method Nair committee applies to the units with limit up to 5 crores. That is true. That is absolutely true. Turnover method up to 5 crores तक valid है. MPBF. What is this MPBF? Give me the full form. MPBF, give me the full form. It stands for what? Any idea? Sir, it basically stands for what? If someone asks me, then my answer to this particular question is MPBF. Basically means maximum permissible bank finance. It is the maximum amount of working capital that bank can extend to a borrower as per the RBI's Tandon Committee, which came in 1975. तो इस केस में अगर हम बात करें 3 मेथड्स हैं. फर्स्ट मेथड ऑफ लेंडिंग इज मेथड 1 वेयर बोरोवर कंट्रीब्यूशन इज इक्वल्स टू net borrower contribution minimum 25% of the working capital gap. Method 2 talks about borrower's contribution is minimum 25% of total capital asset and borrower contribution is minimum 25% of the total current asset after excluding the core current assets. तो ये methods है जिसके basis पे these calculations are done. So keeping that in mind, this is correct. Projected balance sheet method is for traders. Projected balance sheet method is for traders. नहीं सर, अगर हम projected balance sheet method की बात करें, it is not for traders. That is wrong. It is basically for these manufacturers. Cash budget method suits seasonal business. That is true. Cash budget जो है वो seasonal business के लिए ठीक है. All methods they are mutually exclusive. No sir, they are not mutually exclusive. P&L projection is different and they are not mutually exclusive. So that is wrong. So answer is going to be 1, 2, 4 are correct. Rest 3 and 5th option are wrong. Next, maximum permissible banking finance or maximum permissible bank finance is calculated with the help of Tandon's committee. So in this particular case, which all points are going to be correct if I go with those points? So the first one we have is it ensures minimum borrower's margin in the working capital. इसकी मदद से minimum borrower margin in the working capital is calculated. That is true. Under method 1, bank finance 75% of the current asset. Wrong. This is absolutely wrong. Tandon committee or method defines contribution. It ensures credit discipline and minimum margin. अगर मैं बात करूँ second method की 25% of the current asset. Third method says 25%. Third method says 25% of total assets after excluding the core current assets. After excluding the core current asset, and method 1 is basically 25% of the working capital gap. 25% of the working capital gap. इसको अगर आप कहें 75% of current asset, then I would say it is 75% of current asset minus current liability. So bank finance up to 75% of the working capital gap, borrower brings 25% as margin. So borrower जो देगा that will be 25% of the margin. So keeping that in mind, second statement is wrong. Third is, in the second method, borrower contributes 25%, that is true. Third, 25% of the total current assets less the core current assets, that is true. It ensures greater discipline in credit usage. Yes sir, obviously. इससे आपका credit usage में जो discipline है वो बढ़ेगा. So answer is going to be 1, 3, 4, 5. Next. Debt. The next point is debt service coverage ratio is equals to net cash accruals divided by total debt service obligations. Is this point correct? सोच के बताओ. बिल्कुल सही है सर, कि आपके पास जो कैश है उसमें से उस कैश का आप जब डिवाइड करेंगे प्रिंसिपल और इंटरेस्ट के साथ जो आपको इस साल पे करना है, उससे आपको पता चलेगा कि आपका डेट सर्विस कवरेज रेशियो क्या है. इफ इट इज बिलो 1 इट इंडिकेट्स रीपेमेंट स्ट्रेन. हाँ, अगर ये 1 से कम होगा दैट इज नॉट गुड फॉर अ लेंडर. Current ratio measures the liquidity position. True. Fixed asset turnover indicates utilization and efficiency. True. Debt equity ratio assesses long-term solvency, not short-term solvency. So answer is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Next, interest rate concept related. We have a question. Floating rate loans are linked to the external benchmarks. That is external benchmark lending rate, MCLR. Base rate, BPLR, that is true. MCLR replaced BPLR system in 2016. नहीं sir, MCLR has replaced base rate in 2016. So keeping that in mind, the second statement is wrong. Keeping that in mind, the second statement is wrong. External benchmark lending rate is linked to repo rate. Yes sir, one of the rate is repo rate, that is true. Repo rate linked lending rates change automatically with policy rates. Yes, जैसे जैसे आपका policy rate change होगा, आपके lending rates for the bank will change and they come under the category of floating loan. That is true. So keeping that in mind, 1, 3 and 4 are correct. Keeping that in mind, 1, 3 and 4 are correct. Fifth statement says fixed rate loans must be reset quarterly. No sir, that has not been the case. Fixed rate loans are fixed, they are not reset. But the floating loans, they are reset generally on quarterly basis. Okay, moving on to the next question. So the next question is loan account operations. If we talk about the loan account operations, what does they say? In case of loan account operation, the first point we have is drawing power is equals to stock value minus margin. That is correct. So जो drawing power है वो derive की जाती है आपके stock में से जब margin को minus किया जाए. Drawing power is revised on the basis of the latest stock. बिल्कुल सही है सर, जैसे जैसे आपका stock revise होगा आपकी drawing power भी revise होगी. Interest on cash credit accounts. Interest on cash credit accounts is charged on daily product basis. That is true. Bank must credit borrower's account when loan is sanctioned. Bank must credit borrower's account when loan is sanctioned. So credit dispersal depends on documentation. It is not done automatically. जब आपके documents complete होंगे, loan disperse तभी होगा. Sanction का मतलब disbursement नहीं होता. Drawing beyond ड्रॉइंग पावर मेक्स अकाउंट इरेगुलर. बिल्कुल सर, अगर आप अपनी पावर से ज्यादा विड्रॉ करेंगे दैट विल बी अ सिचुएशन ऑफ इरेगुलर बैंक अकाउंट और लोन अकाउंट. नेक्स्ट, लोन डॉक्यूमेंटेशन. सो प्रॉपर डॉक्यूमेंटेशन गिव्स बैंक लीगल राइट टू रिकवर ड्यूज. ट्रू. इसीलिए KYC और या मैं कहूँ कस्टमर ड्यू डिलीजेंस और एनहांस्ड ड्यू डिलीजेंस इज डन. Stamping ensures enforceability in front of court. That means to make a contract a legal contract. That is true. Registration is compulsory for all loan documents. Registration is compulsory for all loan documents. That is true. Renewal of limits. Registration is compulsory for all loan document. नहीं सर, registration हर एक loan document के लिए mandatory नहीं है. Renewal of limits require document revival. That is true. Improper documentation can render the security unenforceable. That is true. अगर आपका improper documentation है तो इससे आपकी security unenforceable हो जाएगी. That is true. So answer is going to be 1, 2, 4, 5. Next, common loan products. First we have the overdraft is granted against current account. It can be granted against current account, no worries. Cash credit is mainly for the working capital, obviously. Demand loan is repayable after. नहीं सर, demand loan का मतलब ये है that it will be paid back on the demand of the lender. जब demand करेगा lender तो within a 72 hours of window borrower will pay back. Term loan is repayable in installments. That is true. Term loan जो है that will be repaid in installments. Bill discounting is a post sale financing facility. बिल्कुल सही है. मतलब क्या हुआ, मान लो एक पार्टी है, उस पार्टी ने एक्स कंपनी से कुछ प्रोडक्ट खरीदे और बदले में बिल दे दिया कि भैया आई विल बी मेकिंग योर पेमेंट आफ्टर 3 months. अब ये एक्स उसी बिल को एसबीआई के पास लेकर गया क्योंकि एसबीआई ने ये बिल्स इशू किए थे इस इंडिविजुअल को. दिस एसबीआई इज द इंडिविजुअल्स बैंक, और एक्स ने वो बिल्स देके उसे इनकैश करा लिया एसबीआई से. तो एसबीआई ने पैसा दे दिया, तो एंड ऑफ द डे क्या है, सब बिल डिस्काउंटिंग कब हुआ, एक्स ने बिल डिस्काउंटिंग कब किया, जब सेल हो गई. पोस्ट सेल फैसिलिटी है. दैट इज ट्रू. सो आंसर इज गोइंग टू बी 1, 2, 4 and 5. नेक्स्ट, recovery assets guidelines. So if I talk about the recovery asset guidelines, banks they must engage recovery agents through authorized channels. Banks they must engage recovery agents through authorized channels. That is correct. Second is recovery agents can use coercive method only after 3 months of default. नहीं सर, ये कहाँ लिखा है, ऐसा तो कुछ नहीं है. रिकवरी एजेंट्स आरबीआई ने स्ट्रिक्टली प्रोहिबिट कर लिया कि आपको कोई भी करेक्टिव एक्शंस लेने ही नहीं है, 3 महीने क्या 6 महीने क्या. एजेंट्स मस्ट कैरी वैलिड authorization letters as well as IDs. That is true. Banks are liable for agent misconduct. बिल्कुल सर, बैंक की लाइबिलिटी बनेगी. Borrower must be given prior intimation before visit. That is also true. मैं बात कर रहा हूँ रिकवरी एजेंट्स की. क्रेडिट मॉनिटरिंग टूल्स. पहला, स्टॉक स्टेटमेंट हेल्प मॉनिटर इन्वेंट्री लेवल. तो आपका जो स्टॉक स्टेटमेंट है, इससे पता चलता है कि आपके बिजनेस का इन्वेंट्री लेवल क्या है. उससे कहीं ना कहीं आपकी क्रेडिट मॉनिटरिंग की जा सकती है. इट विल बी बेटर document for the bank to make a decision कि whether the loan should be given to you or not. Periodic inspection ensures asset existence. बिल्कुल, अगर आप periodically visit करेंगे it's fine. Otherwise पता चला कि आपका इन्वेंट्री खाली हो गया और आपको पता तक नहीं है. Account turnover analysis detect the fund diversion. बिल्कुल सर, अगर आप अकाउंट टर्नओवर को एनालाइज करेंगे तो उससे आपके फंड कहाँ डाइवर्ट हो रहे हैं वो भी पता चल जाएगा. डिफॉल्ट इन इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट इज अ वार्निंग सिग्नल. Renewal of limits is purely procedural. Renewal of limits is not purely procedural because renewal involves reappraisal, not procedural formality. तो उसमें आपका reappraisal किया जाएगा. इसमें कोई procedural formalities नहीं है कि वो perform कर दो और आपको लोन जो है वो renew हो जाएगा. नहीं, दोबारा से credit appraisal होगा, assessment होगा, तब जाकर आपको renew किया जाएगा. Next, priority sector lending. PSL target support inclusive growth. That is absolutely correct. Banks they must ensure availability before lending under PSL. That is true. Security norms are always waived. नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है. हमेशा priority sector lending का loan collateral free होगा. That is not the case. Lending principles still apply to priority sector lending loans. That is true. Priority sector lending loans include export credit. That is true. Agriculture, export credit, weaker section, renewable energy, education loan, home loan, social infrastructure as well as export. ये MSME जो भी मैंने मिस किया था वो इंक्लूड कर लेना. These are the 8 subsectors which are targeted. Next is credit sanction process. If we talk about the credit sanction process, sanction is approval of facility within delegated authority. That is true. Second is disbursement precedes documentation. Disbursement क्या डॉक्यूमेंटेशन से पहले होगा? नहीं, डिस्बर्समेंट सक्सीड्स डॉक्यूमेंटेशन. क्रेडिट कमेटी अप्रूवल रिप्लेसेस ओके, तो अगर हम क्रेडिट अप्रूवल की बात करें तो जो पॉइंट है दैट इज सैंक्शन लेटर। सो सैंक्शन लेटर पॉइंट पे अगर हम बढ़े तो सैंक्शन लेटर मस्ट स्पेसिफाई टर्म्स एंड कंडीशंस, ये बिल्कुल सही है सर। जो आपकी सैंक्शन लेटर है उसमें सारी टर्म्स एंड कंडीशंस लिखी होनी जरूरी है, दैट इज एब्सोल्युटली करेक्ट। पोस्ट सैंक्शन मॉनिटरिंग इज पार्ट ऑफ क्रेडिट साइकिल, पोस्ट सैंक्शन के बाद भी मॉनिटरिंग की जाएगी आपके lending which has been done by the bank. It is again a part of credit cycle, that is true. So keeping that in mind, 1, 4 and 5 are correct. Next is loan classification and recovery. An account overdue for greater than 90 days will become NPA, that is correct. Substandard asset NPA up to 12 months, correct. Doubtful asset NPA greater than 12 months, that is correct. Loss asset जो term है, loss asset जो term है, that is given as an uncollectible loan by the auditor or the bank, that is true. Provisioning for loss asset is 100%, not 15%. So keeping that in mind, 1, 2, 3, 4 are correct. Remember this, 1, 2, 3, 4 are the correct answers. Last question, fair practice code for lenders. If we talk about the fair practice code for lenders, then in that particular case, bank must provide acknowledgement of loan application true. Borrower must be informed of reasons for loan rejection true. Interest rate changes must be communicated transparently. अगर आप interest rates को change कर रहे हैं, that should be indicated transparently, that is true. Disclosure under FPC are voluntary, no sir, they are mandatory. FPC. So I hope the points we have discussed are crystal clear, guys. Our batches are live. We are coming up very soon with the crash course also for November 2025. And I will be informing you about that batch pretty soon so that you can join that batch in order to clear your November PPB examination. Thank you so much for joining. We'll catch you soon. Bye-bye. Take care. Good luck. God bless you all.